The only thing worse than getting hurt is getting hurt again and again until you're stuck in a cycle of rest, pain, and repeat. And this is what I was stuck in for a very long time, and to be honest, longer than I needed to be. And it made the start of my running journey very frustrating because anytime things were going well, I'd get hurt. Whether it be shin splints, medial knee pain, IT band pain, hip tightness, calf tightness, just to mention a few. I got almost every pain that running can offer, and now I know one truth. My body wasn't broken, fragile, or incapable. I was just training the wrong way for a very long time. And to explain what I mean, I want to take you back to the first time I got hurt, which was an ACL tear playing football, which at the time was my favorite sport, and not being able to play sucked because that was what me and my friends would do all the time. And being injured and just watching from the sidelines was the worst feeling ever. This happened in 2019, and fortunately I didn't need surgery, but in 2020 I started rehab, and after a few months I was starting to walk again pain-free. But when I got back to football, I didn't really feel like my old self again. I still felt weak. I wasn't able to run without pain. I wasn't able to switch directions without pain. I still felt a bit weak. So I kind of called it quits on football and decided to start training for looks instead. And that lasted for about 3 years until 2023. And don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed this time because I started out skinny, and seeing consistent progress, seeing that I was able to put on muscle, put on size, I really enjoyed that. I was feeling a lot more confident. But that didn't last very long. I eventually got bored and the training just felt very repetitive, and I wanted a new challenge. So in the fall of 2023, I started running. At first, it was very exciting, but there was one big problem. I kept feeling this insane calf tightness in my legs. It was like that burning sensation, almost like the calf became a brick, and it became very hard to run longer than 3 minutes at a time because of this. I had to keep stopping, which at the time felt like a weakness because I kept looking at other people around me and seeing that they're all running smoothly, and I was just there feeling very heavy, and that kind of made me lose motivation, and I eventually just quit. And then a few weeks later, during winter break, I was playing paddle with my friends, which if you don't know what paddle is, it's basically like tennis in a glass box. And I started to notice that I was getting very tired after 40 minutes of playing, which I thought was weird because I was training 6 times a week. I was so dedicated to having this healthy lifestyle, but I still felt unfit doing something so simple. So I knew something had to change. That's when I decided to give running another shot, but this time with a proper strategy, a strategy that focuses on actually tracking my progress, actually making sure to run slow and not gas myself out on every set. And honestly, things were looking very good. After a few weeks, I was able to run my first 5K non-stop. And then a few weeks after that, I was able to run my first 10K. And the most important thing was I was finally enjoying my runs again. But this happiness didn't last very long because in summer of 2024, I got this intense IT band pain. And also a few weeks after that, I got shin splints. And I felt so broken and confused as to why this was happening to me. And eventually the pain did go away, but a few months later I got shin splints again and also medial knee pain. And this was becoming an annoying cycle that I was stuck in of get hurt, feel better, get hurt, feel better, repeat. And what sucked the most is running was my outlet at the time. Whenever I felt stressed, angry, or sad, I'd go for a run and it would help me feel better. But when I'd go for a run and get hurt on that run, it would just make me feel more incapable, and it would honestly put me in a worse mood than I was before. I knew I was going to give up again if I didn't find a solution fast. So after months of trial and error and nearly obsessive research and study, I finally found the answer. I wasn't approaching my strength training correctly. I was training to be a good-looking robot when in reality, that doesn't really help you move and live without limits. Training like an athlete does. And that's when I started training like an athletic runner, which is a balance of running and functional strength training, and the strength training that tests your stability, strength training that tests your strength in mobile positions, and the strength training that tests your tendon's capacity to handle plyometrics. Not only did this help me finally break free from the cycle of running pain I was in, but I started to finally fall in love with training again. It was exciting again, it was challenging again, and it transferred to a lot more than just my workouts. It transferred to how I felt on my long walks. It transferred to how I felt on my hikes, on any other activity that I enjoy to do. I felt more fit, I felt stronger. And because of all this, I started to feel a lot more confident, capable, and I started to believe in myself more. And this carried out to a lot more stuff than just training. It carried out to how I work on my business every day and how I interact with others. And that's exactly why I continue to train the way I do now. and why I help others do the same. Take Sophie for example, who couldn't run past 50 minutes without intense calf pain that she was experiencing, and this really frustrated her because she was training for a marathon, but she couldn't really continue with her training because she couldn't pass that 50-minute threshold without getting hurt. But after targeted strength training that targeted her weaknesses and turned them into strengths, and load management and fixing her running form, she was finally running without this calf pain, and most importantly, she's finally loving her runs again. And take Gail, who kept getting shin splints anytime she ran to the point that she really felt broken and almost wanted to quit. But after identifying her bottlenecks and seeing what's holding her back and turning these weaknesses into strengths, she was finally able to run pain-free again. She was able to run 5Ks, 10Ks, and most importantly, she was finally loving her runs again. And truth is, you can do this on your own. You can go watch a ton of YouTube videos, see what works, but that's a long game to play. And there's a chance you do everything right, but there's one or two last variables holding you back and keeping you in pain. That's why I created the Athletic Runner Method, which is a one-to-one coaching program for runners who love to run but are stuck dealing with shin splints, knee pain, and calf tightness. And if you're in pain and you're done playing trial and error with fixing your pain and you're ready to start building a strong body that lets you run pain-free, you can click the link in the description and start today. And worst case scenario, if you don't absolutely love it, message me and I'll refund you in full. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to message me about my coaching or have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to do so. My DMs are always open. See you in the next one.